I started TikTok when COVID came around, and I just done it for fun. I still pinch myself, mate. I'm just like, did I still make money doing this online? But I was still obsessed with the internet.
To basically rank number one in Google News for whatever term was trending.
I get frustrated with people. I am not trained in people management. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not HR. I'm not all of these things that you would have to be to run a successful agency.
At least now I can show to my parents that I actually do something for a living because they have no idea what it is I do. Hi guys, it's Karl here, and today I'm joined with a lovely guy, Craig. Most of you know him as the Black Hat SEO. I know he does a lot of talks around the world, basically, Craig, aren't you? Very worldwide SEO. Now, actually, funny story, he's also even known in my friendship circles. Oh, is he that Glaswegian guy on TikTok? Oh, he's proper hilarious, him is what I hear. Like, literally, that was a friend of mine called Ross. He literally messaged us the other day saying, do you know that Craig Campbell? I was like, yeah. He said, oh, mate, he has some hilarious TikTok videos. So now you're actually no longer an SEO, Craig. You're now a TikToker.
Dude, the TikTok was fun. You know, it's weird that comes up, Carol. I started TikTok when COVID came around, and I just done it for fun because I was bored in the house, just recording random shit. And do you know that I've never, ever had a single inquiry or a comment or anything to do with SEO on TikTok? It's all like just shaking the fat ass or doing stupid stuff, which is bizarre. So in Glasgow, people like,
it's shocking that I wouldn't have realised that. You haven't had a single business inquiry on some of them videos.
So yeah, but people from TikTok are like, Craig, what is it you actually do? And you're like, and it's weird because obviously on the other hand, you know, you've got the SEO industry and everyone knows roughly what you do or what you're known for, whether it be speaking, black hat shit, whatever. So it's weird to have two wildly different audiences, if that makes sense. But yeah,
would you say that TikTok became more of just a fun pastime for you then, with that in mind?
Yeah. I, even to this day, I don't really post SEO related stuff. I've seen you guys posting, podcast stuff and all that on there. I just feel that TikTok, the audience are not fucking interested in SEO. Let's be honest. You know, these guys are just on there having a bit of fun, doing something stupid, saying crazy things. And I think what it's helped me understand is, like, on Facebook, for example, I've got a lot of friends in the industry, the same as you. They don't want to hear me talking about local SEO or a black hat tip or whatever. You know, if I post a picture with Charlie or something, that gets more engagement than me posting a clip of here's the new fucking local SEO hack. So I think different platforms have different audiences, and obviously you've got friends on some platforms, like Facebook, for example. They don't really care about your fucking SEO part. Keep that to LinkedIn or Twitter or YouTube or whatever.
Honest, even on LinkedIn, mate, like I've seen, obviously I've got dogs and like the ice that I do cold plunging every day. And like my cold plunging and my dog posts usually get more impressions and like comments than me SEO tips and advice. And I'm like, the hell? I know it's a social network, but it's meant to be about business. What the hell?
Dude, I get massively jealous because Charlie gets more attention than me when I post him. But I think, if you're doing, it depends on what you post, but I think you have to look at yourself going, no one really cares for SEO that much. But they don't do it. Like, we've got friends who are not in the SEO space, and they don't even know what it is. Like, I've got friends in the real world, and they're like, Craig, they still, to this day, Craig, what the fuck is it you do? How come you're always fucking jacking around, traveling all over, doing this and that? What the fuck is it you actually do? And you're like, you've got a point, mate. Like my friends think I fix computers and shit like that. Like they just can't get it.
That's why I made the joke when we were at the award ceremony in Dubai. At least now I can show that I show to my parents that I actually do something for a living because they have no idea what it is I do. Most of my friends go, well, he's not really in IT. I don't know what, like, they don't know how to classify what I do for a living. And then the problem is, never do I, if I'm being 100% honest. Like, I add to the confusion because I'm like, I just play around with fiddle with some keywords on a page and build some links to it, and it seems to work.
Yeah, it's a bizarre industry. I've had, similar to you, people think I'm an IT guy. I've had people come up to me with a laptop saying, "Can you change the hard drive?" And I'm like, dude, I wouldn't know how to fucking change a hard drive. Like, they're like, but you sit at a computer all day, and you're like, yeah, but I'm not changing hard drives all day, and stuff like that. So, but I think, for us, I still pinch myself, mate. I'm just like, did I still make money doing this bullshit online? And you're like, fuck. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird because even the conversations that we have between friends and colleagues and stuff, see if an outsider was to sit there listening to that, they'd just be like, the fucking hell are you guys talking about? It's just all gobbledygook. It's crazy. It's crazy.
This is a true story. It just reminds us of, I've got a very good friend called Thomas, and he's based in he's like from Yorkshire way, I think, because he's got like one of them, like farmer accents. So anyway, runs a very, very big operation, like £1 billion operation type thing, huge operation. And one day he was just sat listening to what we were up to on like Google News stuff, and at the time we were quite good at news hijacking, and obviously utilizing engagement signals and stuff like that to basically rank number one in Google News for whatever term was trending. And he was like, shut up. I was like, oh no, you definitely can. Like, watch, I make a post saying that such and such is running for Prime Minister. And we got it within like 3 hours. It came up on Google News. He's like, whoa, shut up, man. How are you able to do that? And it's like, that's just what he's like, mate, that's so dodgy. I was like, it's not. It's a genuine job of someone to do like press releases and stuff. Just we know how to manipulate the system.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So how did you get started? I don't actually think I've ever asked you this, Craig, to be fair. How did you get sort of started in like SEO?
By basically blagging my way in. So I'm 45 now. I know I don't look it. I look a lot younger, but when I left school, mate, like when I was 17, it was the first time I had the internet in my house, dial-up connection, around about 1997. Now, I left school, and for maybe 2 or 3 years, I had dead-end jobs, call centres, Burger King, all the usual. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but what was mesmerising for me was the ability to talk to people online, like MSN, chatting to girls, the whole age, sex, location thing, the internet. When I grew up, dude, we never had a mobile phone or anything. We if I wanted to go out with my friends, you chapped their door and said, "Are you coming out to play?" There was no phones or nothing. So to then, when you leave school, be faced with the internet and all the kind of endless opportunities that were there, it was just mind blowing. So I had a couple of years when I left school, dead end jobs, but I was still obsessed with the internet, and I just decided that I wanted to become a web designer. Don't ask me where that came from, dude. I was in PC world, and I bought this thing called Mr. Site, and it was like a CD, and it fucking basically gave you an old templated website, and I was just fucking around with it and all that. And I had it learned a bit of HTML, and I had like the marquee text going across the top of the homepage, and I thought I was like fucking King Kong of the internet.
That one that was like the scrolling text.
Yeah. And it was like red, dude, it was god awful. So I started to mess around with HTML and try to learn websites. But after about a year of that, it just wasn't. It just wasn't clicking. I used to also have a software called GIMP, which was the image manipulation tool. Of all the names, it's called GIMP. So I'm using GIMP trying to design images and all this stuff, logos, dude. It was god awful. Like, I'm talking about a 5-year-old kid could design something better than this. It was really bad. So I was on forums and stuff, and I kept hearing people talking about this whole marketing a website and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought, you know what? I'm really shit at web design. I'm going to give this SEO stuff a bash. And you know, all of these years later, I'm still here pretending I know what I'm doing. You know, it was on forums and stuff, and you know, there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't social media. It was all forum based learning, and just played around, and before you knew it, you had guys who had wee websites who wanted a bit of SEO. And you know, back then it was just like getting directory links and all the garbage of the day, and getting your DMOZ listing and stuff. It was actually really fucking easy, mate. It was jackassery at its finest. And you're like, fuck, you know, this guy ranks #1 for this. He's getting a lot of inquiries. He talks to his mate. And then before you know it, you've got all of these clients all wanting the same shit. So that's kind of how it started. And I've done that for 3 or 4 years in the house. Basically my apprenticeship. And then I was getting fed up sitting in the house doing this work, because you know, I had family and stuff who were like, Craig, you're a drug dealer. I know you're up to no good. Like, how are you making money? But I was struggling to get motivated. So I then decided to get an office. So I used to drop my wife off at work and then go to this shitty little office. It was a one-man office, just to try and do work in there, because I was watching Jeremy Kyle all day and trying to do a bit of work. And then from there, you know, I hired a web designer because I was really bad at it. I hired a sales guy, content writer. And before you knew it, I ran my own agency for 10 years. From all of that, you know, just goofing my way in, blagging my way in, if you like. And I ran that agency from probably 2005 to 2015. And a lot of people know me as the guy who says fuck clients, agencies are fucking dicks and all that stuff. I'm not meaning that as a personal thing to anyone's agency, but running an agency for me at that time, I didn't have any processes, mate. Like, my SOP was post-it notes all around my fucking desk, all around my thing. You know, I didn't trust anyone. I had an ego. All of the things that we probably all have suffered from along the way. So my agency, I struggled to get past a certain level of turnover, because I didn't delegate enough. I didn't have SOPs. I didn't have the right people. I was just hiring anyone and everyone. You know, I even, and some of my friends laugh at this, there's a local charity in Glasgow called Bernardo's, where they used to contact me saying, Craig, we want to send 2 people to you to work for 6 weeks. It's just to get them back into the working environment. That was my content strategy. Get some Bernardo's workers and get them just churning out content for all the plumbers and all that stuff. And some of my friends are like, Craig, you're fucking ruthless. You know, I wasn't earning big bucks, and you know, technology wasn't what it was back then and all that kind of stuff. So I used to do a lot of that stuff. But in the end, after 10 years of running that agency, it basically fell on it collapsed because I was so burnt out, stressed out, and I was in the middle of it all. So what I'd essentially done was built myself into the business and wasn't working on the business. But from, you know, during all of that time, one of the biggest guys that I used to follow was Matthew Woodward. Mm-hmm. And he was always doing the affiliate side of things and living the dream, traveling the world, speaking at conferences, making money for doing fuck all, basically, you know, promoting this, promoting that. And I always looked at him and I thought, I want to be that guy. I want to do what he's doing. This agency crap is not for me. I get frustrated with people. I am not trained in people management. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not HR. I'm not all of these things that you would have to be to run a successful agency. So I pivoted in 2015 to doing a lot more affiliate stuff and get out of the agency life and get away from client work, because it just wasn't for me personally.
the client work, if you don't mind, is it's reporting, right? That's the main issue. That seems to be the thing that all clients want. It's almost like they're not even asked if you do zero SEO. If you give them a glossy report, they're happy to pay for that. And it's like, well, with that,
Yeah,
I'd rather do SEO, and chances are I don't have the time to do a nice report. I can show you impressions increase, average position increase, click-through rate increase, all from Search Console. I don't need to put it into a glossy report. Look, here's live data. But for whatever reason, it seems to be like it's very much driven by, can you give me a keyword ranking report or some type of glossy report that shows you've done something this month? Did
yeah,
you ever
it's
struggle with that bit, or?
yeah, I massively struggled with that. I found that very frustrating because the way that I would talk to you, if you were sat with me in Dubai right now, we could have a conversation. We can show each other shit and, all of this kind of stuff, and it makes sense. But when you say that to a client, it doesn't mean anything to them. They need something tangible that they can see. And even if it's not what you're doing, that's what they want. So sometimes, I've done a lot of training and stuff since. And the reason that I feel I was good to do that is because I understood that what clients get in terms of reporting and what actually is done is sometimes two very different things. And that is the game you have to play at certain times. The client pays the bill. And if you don't give them what they want, you're not going to retain that relationship and you're going to lose the retainer. But for me, I'm fairly blunt. I'd rather just say to someone, I'm doing a bit of CTR, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I've got, building a knowledge panel to try and get, all of that stuff that we would talk about in person. When you say that to a client, they're like, what the fuck's a knowledge panel? So there's this whole, you have to then try and train them to understand what you're talking about. And I always found that hard as well because I'm like, guys, you're not paying me enough to either train you or sit for 5 days making a fancy report. And me making a fancy report is not best use of my skills because it takes me 5 times longer to make something look nice than it would for someone who was good with graphics and stuff. So that is not best use of my time. And I used to be pulling my hair out my head at the end of the month, which is why I've not got much hair left. With the reporting side of it, because there is no reporting tool, even to this day, that just does a good job. You were always pulling screenshots and showing this and documenting that. And there were so many moving parts to it. So I found that really frustrating as well, which is why I always say fuck clients. And even now when I train people, report on traffics, rankings, and conversions. They don't need to know about all of the other stuff that goes on. They don't, even if you're talking about disavows or content pruning or whatever the hell you're doing, a site audit, it doesn't even matter. They don't care. They don't want to know. They just want what they believe to be
I
something
think
tangible.
also
And whether
that
that's 10 blog posts, then so be it.
I think the hard part as well is obviously with SEO, it's all about what people don't understand is it's all about testing, right? So you might tweak a page, do loads of on-page changes, maybe there's a few internal links to it. You've noted down what tweaks you've made, and now you have to wait. Like it isn't going to happen like tomorrow. All of a sudden, you have to give it maybe 2 weeks to see the impact on impressions. And guess what? You can sometimes be wrong as well. So you've made these changes and it's went down. And you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to revert these back.
But dude,
Um,
how many times have you done something and it worked really well for one website? You followed the exact same fucking thing in another website, and you're like, nothing's happening here. Like, what, what
Mate,
the fuck is going
I've
on?
lost count. I've lost count. It makes us question whether or not I even know SEO half the time. I'm like, wait there, what's going on?
Um, so yeah, you get that as well, and what works well for you might be working on a 20-year-old website, and certain things that you do just pop, and you do the same thing with a brand new website, and you're like, nah,
And I think
it's not.
that's also you've hit the nail on the head there, Craig. I think sometimes when you're working on those age sites, it makes SEO so much easier. Whereas a lot of the time, it's fucking a guy's just created a business. He's come to you because you're the SEO guy. His website's 30 days old, and he wants it to rank for a 10,000 monthly search volume keyword in a month's time. And
and
you're
he's no
like,
content
mate,
either. He's got
yeah,
a
no,
Facebook
there's nothing.
website.
There's one page.
You're like, I'm supposed to create all of this, and you got £500 a month to make that happen. Like, it's scary, mate. That's the scary thing. And like we spoke about before you jumped on, even when you do consultancy where you're advising people, somehow they expect you to still be doing it as part of the consultancy. You're like, hang on, I can't write 10,000 pages. I can barely write my own name, let alone write you 10,000 pages of something I don't know anything about. Um, get fucked, go and hire someone to do it or whatever. But you can't use ChatGPT. You can't do this. You can't do that. There's parameters. And I think with all of that, mate, that is why a lot of businesses are not successful, because even as a consultant, you're advising people, but they run away and shit this stuff out with ChatGPT and stuff as well. And you're like, oh my God, if it was that easy, I would have done it for you.
Yeah.
Sadly, like you say, though, you've always got to be testing and trying different stuff and blowing stuff up. And I think we all have shiny object syndrome. We're always looking for the next best thing to do our jobs for us. And that's what I love about the industry. New tools, new shit to blow up and try things out. And it's just
I think
that.
half the battle is sometimes you get lost though, right? So I sometimes find myself sort of spiraling, and it's all because new tools like AI, stuff like this, has all come into it, and you're like, right, how can I maximize or change this process from what was a manual process and working really well? Now I want to automate it with AI, right? And then that becomes a minefield in itself. You rent at something that you're not really sure on. You're not the most technical of guys, although I'd argue I'm probably more technical than most. But it's still a whole other language that you are now having to compete with and learn and relearn. And it can become quite tiresome, to be fair. So in 2015, then, so you've decided to give up it was 2015, right? You decided to
Yeah,
give
yeah.
up the agency. What happened there? How did that come about? And what did you then look to move to?
So I made the decision that working with clients wasn't the right thing to be doing. Now, it wasn't a case of on the 20th of August, I just shut down the agency. It wasn't quite like that. So probably for a year, I started building a couple of my own e-com stores. I actually done a lot more than a couple. Only a couple of them worked. But we'll not talk about the failures. But so I started building and investing some of the money I had in other things. And I think you've probably seen some of the presentations. I get into the women's clothing niche, and the returns on that was scary, mate. It was eating away at the profit. I just looked at search volume.
It must be 55% plus return rate.
Yeah, easy. Dude, my wife fucking does the exact same thing. I don't know why I didn't
Yeah.
think of this. Anyway, done that, bought the stock. I was going bankrupt essentially because of the amount of returns that was coming in. It was costing me money to run the business. So as an SEO, again, in 2015, I still wasn't a businessman. I wasn't thinking straight, whatever. I still just looked at search volume and went all out. I bought the stock, done this, done that, and realised that I very quickly had to throw that business in the bin because it was going to make me bankrupt. Also done the e-cigarettes niche. Again, looked at search volume and then realised there's a lot of red tape in terms of Google Ads and everything else because it's nicotine. So I made those mistakes, but I had a couple of websites that actually worked out very well, and these were the ones that I didn't actually expect to work out well. The ones that I didn't expect, I've still got to this day, believe it or not. So I started doing that, and my job there for probably a year between 2015 and 2016 was to replace the money that I was getting from clients with some form of affiliate or e-com money or whatever it was going to be. So it probably took me a best part of a year to make that happen. And from there, I was able to then slowly just let some of the clients drop off that were pissing me off, essentially, and pivot over to doing more of that stuff. And like I say, I made a lot of mistakes as well. I launched probably 30 or 40 websites. But like you say, always testing. There was just, like us all, I see it in you. I've seen it in Dooley. Impulsive guy, I've seen, and I joke about it with Dooley, give Dooley half a bone, and before you know it, there's a website, there's a content strategy, there's social media, everything's popping for this, and he's not even thought about the legalities or, the returns. We're all like that. So I impulsively dived in and made a lot of mistakes. But like I say, I was making more money than I was losing, so I was still hanging on for dear life. So it was kind of a slow pivot over a year, and just slowly getting rid of those pain in the ass clients, mate. And then from there, I was big into doing the Amazon affiliate websites. Just the content heavy websites. It was easy to get to 2, 3, 4, 5K a month quite easily, utilizing the content teams and all the processes that, even though I said a lot of the processes were dog shit, but the processes and people that I had behind the agency weren't actually working for clients anymore. They were actually making my websites make money. And I think probably from 2016 up till about 2020, end of 2020, I was very, very big into Amazon affiliate websites. I had websites in so many different niches. I used to scale them, flip them, buy them, sell them, whatever. I was big into that up until 2020. And the reason I get out of it round about then is because at the end of 2020, Amazon cut their commission again. And I think it was the second time in 2 years. So it was down to like 3%. And you're just like, what I'm spending on the websites in terms of content, links, and everything else, when they're cutting it, it was basically breaking even. So I sold a lot of those websites, but I still had some e-com stores and stuff that were still the main cash generator for things. So still, was doing that. But obviously, in between times, I was doing a lot of affiliate for SEMrush. I was speaking at events. I was building a personal brand. I'm working with Odys, all of these kind of things as well. So there was multiple revenue streams, not just from the e-com stores or the affiliate stuff. I was starting to make money, on doing SaaS with SEMrush and various other people and building the personal brand. So I was making money, and I think probably between 2016 and even now, it's just about diversifying the income streams. You can't just rely on your link building agency to make money. I also have a link building agency. I know the trials and tribulations that go on there. I know the type of clients that I want to work with, and I don't like to sell.
They come round once in a blue moon.
So I've still got a lot of that stuff going on in the background. But are these fully scalable, safe businesses? Nah, I think link building is one of those ones just now, dabbling in a bit in the old digital PR space, trying to pivot again or diversify, if you like. And I'm now doing a lot of stuff with AI agents and automation and stuff like that. So it's always just about evolving, mate. I think over the course of everything that I've ever done, it's always been about evolving and trying to pivot at the right times. Even, end of 2020, when I seen that Amazon affiliate websites were dying, I just thought, fuck it, get out and move on to something else. And I think that's an important thing that I've got. I seem to be able to have a knack for being able to jump out at the right time, if that makes sense. And I think we've all got to do that, because you've evolved over the years. All of our friends have all evolved, even guys like Gary Wilson, he done his link thing, scaled it up, moved into real estate. He's scaling the shit out of that and making a lot of money. Yeah. It's all about timing and pivoting and going off in a different direction.
It's interesting because I think a lot of the friendship group, especially that I think we've all known each other for, it must be 8 years now, 9 years, if not longer.
Yeah.
I think within the friendship group, we're all kind of more pivoting into utilizing the skills that you've learned in real business, as opposed to doing it for clients all the time. Don't get us wrong, I've got consultancy clients that help, but 9 times out of 10, these consultancy clients, usually the agreement becomes, I'm actually part of the business now. I'm a shareholder in the business. So I'm utilizing my skills to help push the business on, as opposed to utilizing my skills at a consultancy rate for the next 12 months, and then not
Yeah.
really ever seeing any of the increase from what you've done.
You need skin in the game, mate. Like that's the thing that's going to keep you going and keep you motivated. And I think if anyone has ever been someone who's tried to push that, it would be Dooley. He's a guy that we've all known for a number of years, and he's all about doing. You've heard them, doing his lead gen and getting shares in companies and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's a very clever way that you've got to try and position yourself. And the skills we've got shouldn't really be played down too much, because I think over the years we've built up a lot of experience, skills that will add value to any business that's out there, and it's got to be worth your while to do it. You can't just do it for a pishy fucking consultancy retainer, and your heart's not in it at that point. If you feel, adding a bit more, and getting a share of the company or whatever, I think that's an absolutely valid point. And I think most SEOs who would be listening, I'd be saying, nah, back yourself up. If you believe that you've cut, because we're all blagging it at some point in this industry, but you do that apprenticeship, you learn, you get the experience, you make the mistakes, and then you're ready to then go in and get equity or investment. I know you have bought into things and all that kind of stuff as well, various different SaaSes. I still laugh. I don't even know half of the stuff you guys are involved in. I was joking about it last week when we were in Dubai, where, Dooley, again, he puts a testimonial on one of his brands, and someone says, Craig, what do you make of this? And I'm like, it sounds like a fucking scam to me. And they're like, oh, really? Because your face is on the website. And I'm like, what? And I looked at it and I'm like, who the fuck is this? And it transpires it was one of Dooley's websites. At least give me a fucking heads up, mate, because I'm going about telling people that sounds like a scam and my face is all over it. Like, give me a fucking heads up. But I think, getting involved in different things is certainly the right way to go about doing things. And I've got countless stories, mate. Like, there was a time, probably a few years back, and a guy phoned me and he's like, Craig, do you want to test out this Google auto-suggest thing? And I'm like, sure. And he says, right, give me a search term and I'm going to make it pop in auto-suggest. And I'm sitting in my car and I'm like, Craig Campbell is better than James Dooley, or words to that effect. Never thought any more of it. So the guy's gotten away and apparently he's going to make this happen and he's going to come back and prove it to me. 3 weeks later, my phone goes, and Dooley, you dodgy bastard. And I'm like, what? You fucking know what? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? When you fucking know, you're at it, you've been caught. And I'm like, Dooley, I have no idea what you're talking about, mate. He's like, well, I've been on the phone. This guy's phoned me, auto-suggest guy, and he's asked me if I want to test something out. So he says, I've told him, make James Dooley better than Craig Campbell, or words to that effect. And the guy went, oh, I can't do that because I'm already doing that for Craig against your name. And so Dooley ended up buying, or I think he either invested in that software or threatened to buy it or whatever the fuck he'd done. But, these opportunities come up to do these kind of things, and some you win, some you don't. And I don't know if Dooley actually won in that, but all of these things are interesting and a great concept. If you could nail the Google Auto Suggest, you've got a business model right there, mate. Right there. And again, I laugh and I joke when I say, Karl, what are you today? You've got fucking Digital Doctor, Searcharoo, fucking this. There's multiple businesses, but that's the amazing thing about the SEO space. You can make micro businesses offering solutions or services to people, and I think that's the amazing thing that we all have, and should invest in. And like I say, you guys have invested in various different things over the years. I'm sure some have been successful, some haven't been successful, but you've got to take those risks. And I'm sure as long as you come out of it making more than you've invested, then you're still winning.
Would you say that that's probably one of the key fundamentals for becoming a successful entrepreneur, then almost that grit and tenacity when it comes to continuing, dust yourself off, get back on your feet, try something new. No, that didn't work. Pivot, try again, try something new.
If we look at the people that we know together, that is probably the main skill that most of these guys have. I wouldn't say that anyone out, you sit there going, fuck, that guy's outrageously technical or anything like that. They're just all entrepreneurial type guys who don't mind taking a chance, and they make money, they might lose some, and it's how you bounce back from that or whatever. I think, if anyone was to sit to me and say, Craig, out of all of these guys that you've met, what is that one thing that they've all got? I would probably say it's that, mate. They're not scared to give things a go, and some win, some don't. And again, I would say that to myself. Like I said there, about a whole bunch of e-com stores, 2 of them have been successful. I've had more dissolved companies than some people have had hot dinners. And it is
we
what
were
it is.
about our domain portfolio of domains that you just renew every year, and I think I'm over a few thousand mark, and I'm sure you've got quite a few as well. And then each year comes around, you're like, you know what, that's a brilliant idea. I'll start that this year, and then again the following year you're renewing it again, thinking I need to start this domain. 10 years on, you've renewed it for 10 years, and you haven't even started the site.
95%, dude, of the domains I've ever bought have never had a fucking website on them. Never. Never. I'm not even joking.
That's what Dooley's pet hate is with me. Like I do like getting a little domain name, like a cheeky domain name. Mate, sometimes I've negotiated and paid like $1,000 or something for a domain. Like I've full on negotiated with the domain sharks, paid a couple of grand or whatever, and then I've not actually done anything with it. It's just sat there.
It's scary, mate. It's really, really scary that we do that. That it's a lot of lost money and opportunity. If you were to sit and calculate that up, the 10 years worth of renewals and thousands of
don't do that. You don't do that bit.
You would cry yourself to sleep. You would literally cry yourself to sleep. But that's the industry we work in, and only we understand that. The amount of conversations we've had with people like sitting drunk one night just buying up random domains because they got a WhatsApp message from someone that said some weird niche, and before you know it, you've bought up every fucking domain under the sun in that niche for every country that you fancy targeting. It's funny. It's funny.
Yeah. One of the weird niches for that as well, that I also did, was the anal bleaching one. Went straight into that niche, and then it's a dirty niche, forgive the pun. But no, it was quite a good one. It was profitable, but it's just a weird ass niche. Weird.
Dude,
Obviously, you don't.
Half the SEO industry have been in that niche. Do you know that? I'm not joking.
Yeah, I know. There's quite a few people being in the niche.
Yeah. I don't know if that says a lot about the industry. But I know a few guys that have been in that. And I was in it myself as well, believe it or not. Again, it was probably... Yeah, I think it was Matt. No, I'm not going to say names, actually. I was going to say someone's name called Matt Diggity. I'm pretty sure he was the first guy that was in that niche, and he got out of it, and I seen the .co.uk version of the domain and grabbed it.
It was actually, I believe it was actually Joel. It was Joel's business originally, and then Matt sort of went into it with him and helped elevate it, I think. Don't quote us on that, but I'm pretty sure it was that's how that business set up worked.
Sorry,
and
Matt, anyone else?
They made a killing in it, to be fair. They made a killing in that industry, which is great. Obviously, they kind of went from, I'm pretty sure they weren't the affiliate, they were actually the product owners type thing. Or at least I know Joel was. He owned the product himself. So we referred to him as like the anal bleaching guy. Or the arse cleaner.
Yeah. I'd done a podcast once with Holly Starks, and asked her a question. I'm like, what's the most bizarre niche you've ever worked in? And she just blatantly hit out with it, and she made a lot of money in this niche, the hemorrhoid cream niche. And I'm like,
I can imagine that, to be fair.
SEOs, man, you would expect them to be in gambling or something exotic, some luxury travel company or something. Nah, it's fucking anal bleaching cream and hemorrhoids.
There's money. One of my first niches I ever started in was getting rid of stretch marks. And that was because I was younger and I was a big guy, and then I got rid of the weight and had stretch marks. So I had an interest in it. I don't know if you can remember the domain at the time, Squidoo.
No. Oh,
Squidoo.
no, yeah.
It was like a e-zine article sort of
Yeah,
type.
yeah.
Fucking, you going back many, but before HubSpot, I think bought them, or someone bought them. And anyway, I had like all of the squidoo.com / get rid of stretch marks, squidoo.com best ways to get rid of stretch. Mate, I was making a fortune on stretch mark cream that I hadn't even fucking used before. And that's kind of what got me into it at the time. Affiliate side is one of the niches I started on. But it's crazy how much money is, when it comes to vanity and stuff like that, it's crazy how much money people are willing to spend on that sort of stuff.
It's scary. I think it kind of hits home the older you get, where you're looking for like cream for your fucking crows or whatever that's called. Vanities are, even for men, is a big thing. So
you've mentioned you're entering into the AI game with AI agents. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit more? What is it you're doing, and how can businesses utilize AI to try and help them further with processes?
I think it's all still very new, but I've had a custom built AI agent to replace myself. So what are the things that I find painful to do on a day-to-day basis that I could get AI to do? So it basically can write my tweets for me. It can write my blog posts for me. It can write my newsletter for me. It can do a whole
You
lot
built
of
all
these
of that
things.
based off a knowledge base of your previous tweets, newsletters, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the important thing. So a lot of people say, well, is that not just a custom GPT or fucking using Chat GPT? No, Chat GPT itself pulls information out of its ass from sources on the internet, whereas an AI agent, you're building the database with stuff that you've said, whether it be your previous tweets, blog posts, presentations, whatever. So the information is instantly more accurate, and it's also trained to speak like me, so it'll say cuss words like me, and stuff like that as well. And that is the big difference. And I think with AI agents, these can be built, for me. But what I want in my business and what you do in your business are two different things. AI agents can do your sales for you. It can do your reporting for you. It can fucking do spreadsheets for you. Literally anything that's tedious and repetitive, you're now going to have the ability to automate a lot of that stuff. And, you've got the likes of Make or N8N to help you. You don't have to be a coder to be able to build these things anymore.
Which one are you
Technologies.
preferring using out of that? Make, or I know Make came about first, but now N8N, they've kind of made it where you can self-host, right? And I found with Make was the problem is I set up a trial account, didn't fully set up my agent correctly, and burned through 2,500 credits in the space of 10 seconds, and was like, oh my God. And then I was like, whereas N8N, obviously, it doesn't really burn through the credits because, especially when you're self-hosting it, it's just your own system. So you might burn through a couple of dollars on, if you're having to get responses from whatever LLM that you're using. But which one are you finding the most success with at the moment?
N8N, now Make, in my opinion, is easier for the general person to use.
That's what I found.
N8N,
I thought that was the case as well. Make was just more like Zapier, like quite easy to understand.
So N8N is a bit more of a pain in the ass, more of a learning curve, if you like. But it's self-hosted. It's a bit more flexible, and I think you can do slightly more with it. Now, I don't claim to be an N8N expert, but I've got people who are that are helping with all of that, and we've got a developer and stuff as well. So between that, I know what I want. Obviously, I can promote it, and they can build and stuff. But there's templates out there on any that clever guys have already done what you want to automate. So you don't need to be some technical whiz. There's tons of free shit out there, or you can just go. There's lots of different places where you can go and buy custom built templates and stuff like that. There's guys selling them all over the place to do this, that, and the next thing. So, I think it's all new, shiny, and very interesting. And for me, the commercial angle is any business out there. I'm not talking about SEO businesses. Any fucking business can start to automate and use AI within their business to scale, grow. It's not about replacing staff or anything like that. But if you can do and scale and grow your business and still retain the 5 staff that you've got, rather than trying to hire 15 or 20 using AI and automation,
you're increasing profitability.
Yeah, that's all we want. Because a lot of people always talk about, you're just doing this to save money and cut staff out and all that stuff. That's not what it's all about. It's just using technology and scaling and making more money and doing things quicker and faster and getting some of the time back. One of your biggest things, Carl, without any doubt, is time. Is a thing you don't have enough of. It's the same for us all. And I think for me, the biggest thing for me is just freeing up some more of my time to be able to continue to learn, continue to develop, go on more holidays, spend more time with my family. I don't want to keep slogging my guts out, doing 16 to 18 hour days, trying to learn all of the time. So,
So are you almost, Craig, are you encouraging your staff to try and utilize AI as much as possible? Is that what you're trying to encourage them to use AI, and then that way the processes get easier, but the reality is they're then in charge, or you're making them responsible for managing that automation?
Yeah. I've always said that to my staff. It's not about sitting there watching over their shoulder and saying, you better work 8 or 9 hours a day. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
If you do what I expect to be done and it takes you 30 minutes and you've used AI, you can sit for the rest of the day scratching your ass for all I care, as long as I'm making money. So I've always kind of been like that anyway, mate. I had this conversation with Dooley. I've always been a guy who likes some form of automation. I get a thrill out of not cheating, but it is cheating. If I can get, I don't know, Mass Planner from back in the day to follow.
I was about to say, I remember when you were quite a Mass Planner.
I've always just had a bit of a cheap thrill out of, some people would sit and do all of that stuff manually, and I could sit there and it's all just churning away on a virtual computer in the background doing its thing. Linked Helper, all of the tools that everyone's used over the years, we've all been interested in it, but obviously the gloves are now off. Technology is fucking far superior now, and I find all of that kind of exciting, and I just love it, mate. And it's a whole new learning curve for me as well. But I like that. You've always just got to be learning, and gone are the days of me trying to continue to learn how to grab an unverified GMB listing. I'm tired of that stuff and trying to get the next hack and then Google plug it and suspend you and all of that kind of stuff. I want to learn new things rather than go down those rabbit holes and be stuck in that kind of way of working. So I get excited by it all.
I would say the one thing, Craig, that I think I've noticed, which is you're exceptional at, is it's almost like your personal branding. You just don't miss when it comes to I think you were doing a YouTube, a Facebook sort of live once a week, and it was almost every single week I'd see your bloody face on Facebook. I'd get notified on Facebook. Craig's went live. I think it was Chris. You were with Chris, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's a one key. And I'm interested to see how do you manage to keep yourself more? So I struggle like mad with doing this sort of stuff, like videos, and it's only because Dooley keeps pushing us to you have to do your videos, you have to like, but it's not my comfort zone at all because I'd rather
Mhm.
just be. I actually quite enjoy doing the work. Like the screen over here, it's filled with friggin' GSC and keywords and that I'm busy running through and stuff like that. I enjoy doing the actual nitty gritty work. How do you keep yourself like motivated, or do you find that you actually enjoy doing that bit?
I do enjoy it. I think, I actually seen a clip of a podcast with you, and I think it was Sackett that was like, he says, Carol, you've suddenly burst onto the scene, and where have you been all your life? And you're like, he's not just burst onto the scene; he's always been lurking around in the fucking background. But people's perception is that Karl Hudson has just burst onto this scene in the last year because you've done a few Q&A sessions at fucking White Press's events, and you're like, no, Hudson's been around for a long time, lurking in the background, and being that public figure, if you like, isn't for everyone.
No.
I tried it. I wouldn't say I like it as such, but if you do it and people seem to like your personality or whatever it may be, and you can be comfortable with it, then you've got to stick to where you fit into the industry, if that makes sense. Some people do, they're just the geeks who work in the background who will never be known. There's
Yeah.
some people who just talk, and sell. And I think I'm somewhere in the middle where I still love and always have loved technology and stuff, but I don't mind, being crazy on stage and swearing and cussing and being funny. I quite enjoy all of that as well. So it's just finding your spot in the industry, and if that makes you money, doing YouTube, then you're going to be motivated to keep going. And people say to me, Craig, you do these videos and all that kind of stuff, and I've got sponsors, I get lots of brand deals every day of the week, wanting to work with me. So money keeps me motivated, and that is the main thing. You're not going to continue doing something if it doesn't make you money. But I think when you're doing the personal branding thing, and guys like Dooley are saying, Carol, do this, do that, do that. I think what people need to understand is there's a period of groundwork that you need to do before you start seeing the money.
Seeing anything.
And
Yeah.
I think young Kazra is a perfect example of that. Kazra, for the past few years, has been working in his personal brand, and he's probably spent God knows how much money going to conferences, mingling, networking, all of that stuff. And I know some of that was done through Searcharoo, if not all of it. So when I say he spent it, Searcharoo have spent money investing in that. Now, that was at a cost to someone, regardless. And it's probably only now where he starts to get a bit of recognition going, oh, he's got a bit of a following, you get invites to other events, you could start to get paid for this, that, and the next thing. But there is that period where you need to offer a lot of value up front. And that's something I've done for years with Chris, always just answering questions, because people always say, oh, these guys never answer questions. They're always just doing videos to suit their own narrative or peddle some bullshit. Nah, come and fucking ask questions. I don't give a fuck. Ask me whatever you want. If I can answer it, great. If I can't, I'll tell you I can't. I don't know that. And I think trying to what you also need to realize as well is you can't just sell all the time, or promote all the time. You have to have probably 90% of your content that goes out there has to be educational. And I think a lot of people fail to see that, and all they do is sell. So I think, doing the Q&A sessions, people still find value in it. And some of the questions are absolutely dumb. People going, oh, how do I, what's a title tag? And how do you fucking add analytics? We've all been there. And you just need someone to do that. So I think, these things have to be done as for the whole ecosystem. You've got to be fresh, you've got to keep answering questions, you've got to have new content, and you see Dooley doing it, you're now starting to do it, seen Kazra doing it for the last few years, and people buy into people. No one cares
That's
about
that's the one
Searcharoo.
thing I would say I've noticed more is obviously Google came out with the research on the touch points, right? The 7-11 4. So 7 hours of engaging, like someone has to spend 7 hours of engaging with your brand's content, have at least 11 interactions, and engage across 4 different platforms. That's the 7-11 4 study that Google obviously pushed, and what a customer is now typically seen to do. So obviously, if you're doing social media videos or Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, like it's all them additional platforms that people are seeing your face on. And guess what? You've got a website that has a retargeting pixel. You can target them all on all these different platforms as well. So you're getting them touch points are building up pretty quickly as well. The one
Yeah,
thing that the one thing I really enjoy when it comes to video, I typically don't like doing it by myself, so I always have to have someone with us. So I'm not like I know you see some of the SEOs where like they just literally go, I'm going to try it. I keep saying I'm going to try it, where you just film yourself on your screen doing something. I'm not really into that. Like that isn't. I like bouncing off people because I feel like
yeah,
I feel like I'm winging it. And I don't know what I'm doing, even though I'm getting results. Like that's part of the problem. But I think with the Q&A style, I absolutely love Q&As because my primary reason for the Q&As is you can give anyone a presentation and ask them to learn it and go and present. You
yeah.
can't give anyone the knowledge to answer a random question at any point on a Q&A panel. That they can just be fired a complete random, you know what I mean? Like they just wouldn't know the answer.
Yeah, I think Q&As are good. However, I would also fight back and say I've done a few Q&As and some of the questions that were asked were fucking horrific, and it actually shed me not in a great light either. So I think you've got to make
That's
sure you
true.
get the right host and stuff like that as well, because I've sat there on panels and you're just like, Jesus, these questions are fucking horseshit. They've not even get 0.5% of value out of me. Like, ask me something decent, and then we can do a Q&A. Because from a speaking perspective, I've done presentations blindly at the start, and you can tell by the audience it just wasn't hitting
Yeah.
the right audience. Is either too advanced or too simple, and you don't know what other people don't know. So I think Q&As are definitely a good thing. The only thing is, in my experiences, the questions are sometimes limited. So that would be the only downside to it, where you're like, fuck, we should be asking better questions. If someone's got X amount of experience, we need to be digging deep and get better questions. And sometimes I feel I actually decline to do the Q&A things now because of that. I've done a few and I'm just like, I'm just wasting my time sitting here. And someone will put their hand up in the crowd and it'll be the most basic thing, how do I get new clients or something? And you're just like, oh, please. So
Everything
that,
that we've just talked upon is how you get clients, about 15 years of graft.
yeah, 15 years of grafting. Yeah, it's some people don't even want to do the basics of learning themselves. You literally need to lay it all on a plate for them.
Yeah.
That's the other side of it. But it's nice to see you doing it, and like I say, other people growing as well. I think you've got to add that kind of personal element into the industry if you want to sell stuff. Because like I say, no one really cares for Searcharoo. They'll probably buy from you based on the interaction, or they like you, or they like Casual, or they like Dooley, or whatever. The Searcharoo doesn't really mean anything to anyone, really, in the grand scheme of things. They would be going, oh no, he's a nice lad, I trust him.
Are you trying to say about the kangaroo?
But that people buy into people though, and I think a lot of people have to sometimes step out their comfort zone to add that human element to their business as well. For the most part, that would be something I think you've got to do now.
So we're pretty much approaching the hour there, Craig. I've got one last question to finish on, and then obviously we'll just have, if you want to just say where you can be contacted and stuff, I'll obviously put it at the bottom of the description as well. This is going to put you on your toes, hopefully. What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received, and from who?
Oh man, the best piece of business advice I've ever received. God,
So we'll put that little shot of, it is 3 minutes later.
yeah, and I still won't know. I don't. I've never actually had one piece of advice where I've went, oh, that's made all of the difference. I think most of the stuff that I've learned in business is all through mistakes I've made. I think one piece of advice that I would love to give myself would have been to delegate earlier on and stop being a control freak. You don't need to have your big nose in about every last thing in your business. Delegate. And I think Alex from ODYS, you look at him, he wants to have a person to do different parts of the business, and I think that's the right way to do it. Whereas I think for my younger self, I was trying to be 10
Every
people.
part. Yeah.
And I wish someone had pulled me to the side and went, what the fuck are you doing, you fucking maniac? And gave me a good slap, because I think that held me back for a long time, many, many years. And I don't know if anyone actually did say that to me, or something just twigged in my head, went, Craig, you're burnt out. Clearly, what you're doing doesn't work, and you can keep fighting against it, or you can start to look around you and see what other people are doing, and then you go, oh, that guy's doing that, and I'm going to have a bit of this, and I'm going to steal that. And, I've learned a lot of different things from a lot of different people. Some things that they probably didn't set out to tell me. I've just taken a little nugget from something they've said and went, that makes so much sense to me. So I don't know if there's ever one piece of advice where someone sat me down and said it, but I've stolen bits from, the likes of yourself or Dooley or even Gary. Met him as a young kid, but even now, I look at what he does and you're like, oh, I quite like that. I like that. And, I don't think you can ever not take inspiration or advice from other people. And I've probably learned a lot of things from a lot of different people, which it would be unfair to sit there and say, oh, this one guy said, do this, that, or the next thing. It's always just a combination of stupid little things that someone said. You might have said an off the cuff thing, and I've went, fuck.
That's something in the head.
It just does something for your brain. And I think it's probably more of a combination of that's probably helped me. And I can't remember off the top of my head if you've actually said anything or not. I'm only kidding. But nah, I think I think I've taken a lot of things from many, many different people. Some people will probably never even know that they said something that actually had a meaningful impact on something that I've done. So it's a combination of lots of different things, but delegation and stuff like that, SOPs, these are all things that I was really poor at, and I've seen so many other people do better at it than me, and I've tried to implement that in my businesses going forward. So I've stolen a lot from a lot of people, mate.
Basically, usually he's got a balaclava on and he's actually just stealing things. That's Craig all over that.
And then
to this day, I've never seen Craig buy a round of drinks. That's the God honest truth.
That's a myth.
Actually, sorry, once.
No, dude, it wasn't one drink. I got left with a full daily tab.
It was 100.
When you come up to Loch Lomond, dude, when you come up to Loch Lomond, I bought dinner, lunch, beers, the full works. You's all fucking dogs.
£130. He was sweating. You should have seen it. He was shit. His hand was like this, shaking. And like you opened it up and it was £130, and he was like, "Oh, actually, it's not that bad."
Nah.
That was actually the one time, I will admit, it is the one time I've seen Craig pay for a bill in the 12 years that I've known him. So this has been a really insightful podcast there, Craig. How can people get in touch with you?
Your best bet is either just to go to craigcampbellseo.com or get me in social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. I'm on all of them. Just search for Craig Campbell SEO and reach out and see what we
Obviously,
can do.
make sure you do that search in Google as well, just because that branded search really helps as well.
Yeah. And thank you to Dooley for the auto suggest what it says, is Craig Campbell SEO gay? Don't think I'm not. But yeah, you need to help me counter that. Get back to my normal branding self.
Excellent. Cheers.